So I would like to now introduce Shree Benny Tillman. Um, and Shree Benny Tillman is a direct disciple of His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. He joined the Hare Krishna movement back in 1973 in Atlanta and has since traveled extensively in India and in other parts of the world, practicing and teaching the ancient Vedic philosophy. Prior to joining the Hare Krishna movement, he was a successful entertainer in the Atlanta music scene during the late 60s and early 70s. Benny Tillman served as president of the Atlanta Hare Krishna Temple for more than 18 years. Mr. Tillman was elected as the first African American president of Vedic Friends Association, a 501c3 Hindu Vedic organization dedicated to the preservation and promotion and application of Vedic culture and philosophy. He is also the temple president and board chair of ISKCON Philadelphia. Mr. Tillman is one of the most respected leaders in the Atlanta Hindu community, having served that community for more than 47 years. He frequently gives lectures at major Hindu events, as well as lectures at local universities. Mr. Tillman currently conducts weekly Bhagavad Gita study groups online, focusing on Western non-Hindu participants. Namaste and welcome to this session.
Hare Krishna, can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can.
Okay, thank you. Hare Krishna and Namaste. So on behalf of the Vedic Friends Association, we'd like to extend our congratulations to the World Hindu Council of America, VHPA, on the occasion of celebrating its 50th anniversary. And we're very proud of the organization and the work that you've done. And I would be remiss if I didn't mention that the Atlanta Hare Krishna Temple is also celebrating its 50th year this year. Our temple started in May of 1970. So we are right there with you. The Vedic Friends Association, we are an organization that's committed to preserving the principles of our Vedic culture. And we represent quite a few scholars and researchers who have been working on this for many, many years. And I'll discuss them in a few moments. But I want to refer back to the actual program that's been taking place for the last 2 days. And I've popped in and popped out on several of the different presentations, but I want to note a few of them. Yesterday, and I don't remember exactly, which session it was, but I popped in when a gentleman named Samir Kaira, I believe that's the right pronunciation, and he spoke very nicely. And I just remember a couple of things that he said that affected me. At the end of his talk, he said that, just like the last session was discussing about politics. So Samir said that advocacy, regardless of who is in political office, is something that's required and beneficial for our community. And I totally agree with that. It's not about Republican or Democrat or independent. It's about the issues. What's beneficial to society? And realistically speaking, that is the foundation of our Vedic culture, to be concerned more so about the sufferings and enjoyments of other persons, to think about that. And I'm going to refer back to that later in this short talk, because I want to mention one word that I think encapsulates our entire Vedic culture. And I'll leave that hanging so you can think about it, and I'll come back to it. And I also want to thank the kids who sang this morning. The program began this morning. For those of you who didn't see it, the kids were singing some really nice songs with a young man playing the keyboard, and they had 4 or 5 kids singing. I thought that was just very beautiful to engage our youth like that. And right after that, one of our keynote speakers, Dr. Raj Veda, and I was listening to his presentation, giving some historical perspective about our culture and our teachings and our teachers. And I thought it was this excellent presentation. And I'm sorry I didn't get to see everyone in the 2-day sessions, but those are the ones that stood out to me. Now, the title of the program this weekend, it says, Walking in Dharma. And I want to point something out about that. Walking in Dharma. And it reminds me of a very well-known phrase. It's used mostly in the Christian world, but it's popular. It's called walk the talk. Walking the talk. And I looked it up and it says to do what one said one would do, not just making empty promises, to do what you say you're going to do. So I think our culture is in a very wonderful position to do a lot of good for society, not just espouse our extensive philosophy. Our philosophy is so amazing, and I've been studying for 47 plus years. I haven't even touched the tip of it yet. It's just unbelievable. In fact, I read Bhagavad Gita. I've read it so many times. It's like every time I read Bhagavad Gita, something new and fresh comes out. That's how powerful these literatures are. So I want to keep that in mind, walking in Dharma. And understanding Dharma is not that simple. Some people say Dharma means religion. My spiritual master, which I'll discuss in a moment, he mentioned Dharma as that unchangeable principle of a thing, whatever it might be. Just like, for instance, if we say, what's the Dharma of water? And that would be liquidity. It's always liquid. So when we talk about Dharma, beyond the Dharma of our particular situation in the world, what is our eternal Dharma? And we call that Sanatana Dharma. So we want to walk in the spirit of that concept. We want to live that. We want to represent that. Now, as mentioned, I'm the president of the Vedic Friends Association. Our mission in the Vedic Friends, again, is to preserve and promote Dharmic principles and practices, but also to create an environment where we can train, especially Western practitioners and our youth, in the principles and practices of the Vedic culture. And in terms of myself, I came to this Hare Krishna movement or this Vedic culture. Actually, I came in contact with the Vedic culture in 1970 when I was studying transcendental meditation under Maharishi Mahesh Yogi. And as mentioned, I was a musician performing throughout the Southeast, first with an all-white rock and roll band and then with an all-black singing group. So I saw both sides of the fence on that. And I was searching for knowledge. The reason was, in a 2-year span from 1970 to 1971, I had lost my oldest brother, my mother, and my father within that 2-year span. So it made me question everything about life. Everything that meant something to me was falling away. So I was questioning, is there something more to life than just that? So in the search for that, I went to Christianity looking for answers, and nothing to disparage the Christian tradition. It's a wonderful tradition. But my search was not satisfied there. And then I went to Transcendental Meditation. I had the opportunity to meet Maharishi Mahesh Yogi in 1970, but I still was not satisfied. It was only after I came in contact with the Bhagavad Gita, translated by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. And that was in 1972. And after reading Bhagavad Gita, all those inquiries in my mind were satisfied. It's amazing. Because at that time, being a musician, I had all the trappings of that, you know, the intoxication, the sense gratification. I was absorbed in that. In fact, I was absorbed also in the African-centric culture, Black culture. So I was distracted. But the Bhagavad Gita was like a light shining through all that confusion. In fact, there's one verse that we chant quite regularly. Om Ajnana Timirandasya Gyananjanan Salakaya Chakshu Umilitam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. And that verse states that I was in the darkness of ignorance, and my spiritual master opened my eyes with the torch of knowledge, and how for my respectful obeisances unto him. So that actually happened to me. My eyes were open after hearing from Bhagavad Gita and also hearing from those who were practicing Krishna consciousness. Now, society at the present moment is quite confused about the real purpose of life, which according to our Vedic teaching should actually focus on self-realization as well as material development. And we know that from Bhagavad Gita that Lord Krishna did not tell Arjuna, you should leave the battlefield, you should go and meditate, live a humble life. He didn't tell him that. He actually told Arjuna, basically he said, you're lamenting for something which is not worthy of grief. Look, Arjuna was concerned about participating in a battle and having to kill so many persons, his relatives, his teacher, his friends. So he became bewildered. So in that bewildered state, Krishna told him, you're lamenting for that which is not worthy of grief. Those who are wise lament neither for the living nor the dead. But in the course of Bhagavad Gita, Krishna encourages Arjuna not to leave the battlefield, but to remain in the battlefield, but to add one element. And what is that element? Manmana bhavama bhakto, majaji mam namaskuru. Always engage yourself in thinking of me. Always meditate upon me and perform your duty. It's a very important instruction. So society is a little confused about it, starting from the very first point of Bhagavad Gita. The very first point of Bhagavad Gita, or the first lesson, as taught by my spiritual master, Srila Prabhupada, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, the founder and Acharya of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness, is that we are not this physical body. We are spiritual beings inside this body. And that's in Bhagavad Gita chapter 2, text 13. Dehino asminyata dehe kaumaram yovanam jara tata dihantara praptir dhiras tatra namuyati. The soul is continually passing through this body from boyhood to youth to old age. And the soul passes on when we so-called die. Soul passes on to another body. So that's the foundational lesson. Building on that we're spiritual beings and we have an eternal relationship with God, while living in this world, we should learn how to connect those two things. And that's called yoga. Yoga, a lot of times people think yoga means just exercise or make yourself fit and strong or more agile, but yoga is much more deeper than that. So the situation that we're in, the confusing situation in the world, presents an opportunity for our Hindu Vedic leaders to offer practical solutions derived from the Vedas. For example, a very wonderful verse that I love so much, chapter 3, text 21, Yad yad acharati shrestas, tat tat eve torojanaha, sayat pramanam kurute, lokas tat anuvartate. Whatever action a great man performs, common men follow, and whatever standards he sets by exemplary acts, all the world pursues. Now that verse, I have spoken that verse so many times in different settings, especially non-Indian settings, like governmental meetings, educational meetings, universities. And people really capture that because it doesn't talk about religion. It talks about setting the proper example. And that's what I think is the essence of what we've been talking about all weekend, how to set the proper example. One of the things that we have a problem with in our Hindu culture is the diversity of our various traditions. We have so many traditions in our Indian culture, Hindu culture. Another one is the vastness of our Vedic knowledge. As I mentioned before, it is unbelievably vast. There's hundreds and thousands of verses from the Vedic literatures. And the last one is creating a more accessible process to introduce our culture and philosophy to the general public. And as I mentioned, our Vedic Friends Association, we have many scholars who are working on that. Most notably, Padma Bhushan David Frawley, or known as Vamanadev Shastri, Jeffrey Armstrong, who's known as Kavindra Rishi, and the founding president of the Vedic Friends Association, Stephen Knapp of Sri Nandanandana. Sri Nandanandana has written over 50 books on the Vedic culture. So we have a storehouse of information in our Vedic philosophy. The other part is reaching out to communities. I've heard this mentioned several times about the need for our Indian community, our Hindu community, to reach out and to help lift up the society. And I've mentioned this several times, especially in the Black community. They're not looking for a handout. They're looking for a hand up, people to help support them. So in that mood, our organization, along with another Hindu-based organization here in Atlanta. They're called the Hindu Service Foundation. We started a project which is to identify families in an urban community, happens to be in my hometown, and then to help lift that family up with a special focus on the youth and the children. So we've already started this project. We've connected with a local nonprofit organization. My son, who's a professional musician, is also helping to identify persons who are interested to work with that. So it's moving along very well, and we're very happy with that. Also in Houston, our dear friend Vijay Palod Prabhu started a program with the Hindus of Greater Houston to facilitate 4 African Americans who are learning yoga, becoming yoga teachers. They're taking care of that, which is really, really wonderful. And I also want to mention something, well, I only have a few minutes left, but I want to mention how we're reaching out to our youth. In Houston, one young lady, her name is Kamal Luthra. I heard her speak on a conference that we had a few months ago, and she brought up the issue of Black Lives Matter. And I was really impressed with how she presented that. So she invited me to participate in a panel that she put together with some of her friends. And we discussed all those issues about Black Lives Matter and so on and so forth. It was a very, very special occasion. So I just want to take a moment and just focus in on one thing. And I mentioned in the beginning, there's one word that I think encapsulates the entire Vedic culture. And that word is, if you put your hands together, touch your chest, namaste. And very, very quickly, namaste, as we know it, is a recognition of the divine within each one of us. The one aspect that people might miss is that in understanding that, there is 2 spiritual aspects within us. There's the Jivatma and there's the Paramatma. So when we're offering respects to each other, we're not so much respecting the body, although we should respect each other's body, but we're respecting the spiritual existence within us, the soul and the super soul. And if we start to do that to each other and to other people in society and start teaching that, and very quickly I'll mention, there is a Christian church called the Namaste Church, where that is their practice. So I think the message going forward is that we should lift up this word namaste and start teaching people all over the world to use this to develop a better sense of love and respect for each other. And that would actually help society as a whole. So let me stop there. I have many other things I'd like to discuss, but if anyone is interested, they can contact me. My email is president@vedicfriendsassociation.org. And thank you all very much for having this wonderful program. And again, congratulations to VHPA for having this wonderful success of 50 years. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.